Could you please introduce yourself and tell what your experience with the light rail has been?
My name is Mike Justin. This is my sister Annie. We're business owners on Main Street. We own a used car lot. We've had a used car lot prior on East Main Street, and we've been through the light rail before. West Main, sorry.
West Main.
And it is just horrific. Traffic not being able to get into our property, vehicles not being able to leave our property, the construction, the dirt, the dust.
Emergency vehicles not being able to access people. They're having to do U-turns going to, if my life depended on seconds, I would want that.
Where we used to have an ingress and an egress from either westbound or eastbound, that went away. Now you can only enter our lot. This is our old property. We've moved because of this, because of light rail. It used to be you could enter again either westbound or eastbound. However, now we're set up to where you could only enter our property eastbound. You could only leave the property eastbound. If you missed us, you were subject to about a 3-mile U-turn to get back to our property, where we've lost intersections, the median for the light rail, the tracks for the light rail. Traffic decreased. You take a 2-lane road and bring it down to 1. You take a 4-lane road and bring it down to 2. Obviously, your traffic is going to decrease. We want you to go from what were the numbers, 45,000 cars a day, 50,000 cars a day, to 9,000 cars a day.
So where were you when you had to deal with light rail the first time?
We actually had to deal with the light rail 2 times. Our first lot was when our father still had the car lot. We were just inside Tempe. Our lot was purchased and it was supposed to be used as a park and ride, and still to this, well, the last time I went down there, I don't venture down any light rail anymore, but it was still sitting empty. But our second move, we moved right in, just inside of Mesa and right there on between Dobson and Price on the south side of Main Street. So we suffered through all that construction, and
We watched crime go up. Our neighbors were telling us about homeless people sleeping underneath our vehicles. Catalytic converters being stolen from vehicles. A crime wave, literally, that was unforeseen. We had never seen anything like this before.
defecation on our lot. That we never
working
had.
girls. We get up at 9 in the morning, and they're already out working. At 9 o'clock at night when we're leaving, they're still out working. It was just gross.
So your property was originally taken through eminent domain
Correct.
and was
Bought out.
supposed to be turned to a parking lot,
Correct.
but,
It's still empty.
Sits empty.
okay, and then the second property, you decided to stay in and see if it did improve.
We thought we would have a captive audience. It's, we sell used cars, and here we have people that are using public
Light rail.
transportation that probably need a vehicle. We thought, hey, we'll suffer through and see what happens here. And,
So what did you go through with the construction?
inches almost of dust on our vehicles on a daily basis. It cost us $1 a vehicle to get our cars washed. We get them washed twice a week, and there was no way that we could afford to get them washed
They weren't
daily.
Keeping up.
We would have to go out there and hand dust them, and I mean, they still looked awful, but at least you could see out the windshield if somebody wanted to test drive. Yeah, it was bad.
How long did you suffer through it before you decided to pick up and move farther east?
Well, we went through the whole thing
4 years.
from being on Main Street with no light rail to the groundbreaking, the whole construction, the entire process, to the light rail being
Up
open
and
and complete.
running. 4.5, 5 years.
And did you own that property as well?
No, we were renting.
Thankfully, we were renting.
It was a blessing. Because these property values have all just plummeted. It's a good thing.
We
I'm
had-
glad we don't own.
A strong, thriving business there, and when the light rail broke construction and everything, we slowly watched it. For a little while, people still had access to the property coming right and left. But as that decreased, so did our business, and it just went downhill from
Our
there.
sales went down from the day they broke ground to well after the light rail was up and running and functional and all the construction equipment was put away. It didn't come back. It never came back to where it was.
And what have you seen with other businesses in your area and elsewhere along the light rail line?
I'm not a Mesa resident, however, my business is in Mesa, right on Main Street where the projected light rail is to go. However, I live in Phoenix, just off of 19th Avenue, a little bit north of Bethany Home, so I'm on the other end of the light rail. I've been a homeowner there for 17 years. I watched all the mom and pop, all the little businesses fall. I watched them all close their doors. Some of them only took a couple of weeks. The ice cream shops, the car washes, the hair cutting guys, the barber shop, etc. The little guys, they just slowly just went away. You just watched the same signs come up: available, for rent, for lease, for rent, closed, out of business. You just watched it. The only businesses still around are Target, AutoZone, PetSmart, the folks who have the deep pockets, who can go to their corporate office and borrow money to pay their staff because they don't have any sales. Their sales have dropped, they're depleted. We don't have a corporate office. There's my bank right there, my front left pocket. I don't have a corporate office to go borrow money from to get through this light rail. I'm not going to go to a bank and ask for money. I don't want to go through this light rail. We've already been down this road, and we're not going to do it again. We will not stay for the light rail.
We kind of have a little joke that we're going to try and we're going to be the first used car lot on the top of South Mountain, somewhere uphill where we know a light rail will never ever be able to physically make it. This will be our third move from it.
Because of light rail. We've been through it. We wrote it out, and there is no benefit. Don't be lied to that there's a silver lining. It's all a big gray and black cloud.
And you know, at the point when we signed the lease at the property we're currently at right now, it was only approved up to Mesa Drive. This Gilbert Road extension was never in the picture to the public or anything, so we thought, hey, we're safe.
Well, we're safe going all the way out to Gilbert Road here, but no. Here comes the devil knocking on our door again.
When is your lease up, and what do you plan on doing at that point?
I think we have 2 years left on our lease.
2 years. We'll be done. I believe we're done in
Possibility of
March
an
of
extension.
15.
March of 15, I
March of
believe.
15, our lease is up, which probably should coincide, to the best of my knowledge, with groundbreaking and so on. And
So we got lucky there.
that's when we're tying it up.
Will you stay in
Fortunately-
Mesa, or just look for the best?
We've considered Sunny Slope. We're pretty much done with the Mesa area, I think.
This is, now that we have the property taxes, that was a nice thing. And now, being renters, we still had that lease reflected onto
Yeah,
us.
it's-
Our landlord didn't have to
She's
pay,
not gonna
our
absorb the
landlord
cost.
didn't have to pay taxes, so we didn't have to pay taxes. So now we've got that as well. Things aren't adding up to a pretty picture here.
And is your landlord from Mesa?
Oh, yes. And she's owned this property. She owns nearly the entire block, and she's owned it since, from what we understand, something around the 30s, 1930s.
So
Her mom
passed
purchased
down
it
from her mother.
back in the day.
So what will she do? What does she think about it?
We haven't discussed it with her. She was
Unfortunately, she's out of town. She's on vacation right
Yeah,
now. She was planning on attending this meeting to get input, but that wasn't an option for her, unfortunately.
Is she concerned about it though?
Oh, yes. She's part of this cause. Or part of what we're doing
She's
here.
going to watch what right now sits as literally millions of dollars worth of property. She's going to watch that all go down to nickels on the dollar.
And I imagine that's her sole source of
That's
income.
everything. That's her life. She doesn't work. She's a landlord. That's it. She's going to lose everything.
And about the crime, did that go down after the light rail construction was finished?
No, that's when it increased. The police, being on the south side of the street there, any police that are driving along on the north side, you can't see anymore over into our property. There's too much stuff going on in between, so.
With the elevated track and so on in the median.
So it's now an open game for everybody.
So
There's
you've got
no more
this whole
visibility for,
property. Any law enforcement, you've got the 2-second 1-2 as you go by, there it
Yeah,
is.
that's
And
it.
If you don't miss anything, that's it, you missed it.
you can lurk in the shadows and never be seen.
We had neighbors and so on telling us about people sleeping under the vehicles and such, and we saw
Catalytic converters.
stolen.
Those are not cheap.
And what about in your residential area? Do you know of any crime changes in the area where you live at the other end of it?
Not so much the crime. I don't know if it exists, if it's changed or not, if it's increased or decreased. However, I'm dumbfounded to see that there aren't more pedestrian vehicle accidents. Now, I don't notice this so much in Mesa. However, I only have this little section of Mesa where I really don't spend any time. However, at my house, I'm up and down there, and the pedestrians have no regard whatsoever for any lights or whatnot. They get in the middle of the rail and walk up to the station, the jaywalking and so on. It's a setup for an accident. I'm surprised more people haven't been killed or hurt, or that there aren't more pedestrian vehicle accidents. Again, there's just simply no regard for any of the lighting or such, as far as the pedestrians go.
And one thing I noticed too, that like when that light rail was put in, there was a mobile home park behind us. And one of the homes was going to get moved. They had no problem coming in there, but now since the light rail was built and the traffic
There's
was,
a median out in the middle of Main
they
Street.
couldn't get this mobile home out.
They couldn't move
They
their
had to go
house.
over the light rail tracks, and I just started thinking, like, we have an RV dealership next door to us at our current location, and we've mentioned to him that, some of these larger RVs that you have, once that light rail comes in, they'll never be able to come out of your property
He's
again.
going to have to move or stop selling
He's
long
gonna have to
RVs.
get these long RVs off of his property before there's a light rail in front of his place now.
Don't
There
limit your inventory because someone.
things that you just don't foresee, that they came in fine before the light rail, but you don't think of that afterwards, that you need to swing that out wide, and you can't anymore.
Right. And you talked a little bit about the emergency vehicle access. Do you have any personal experience with that, or have you
No
just-
personal experience, but we've seen it
Fortunately.
sitting there at the property, and here comes the fire truck coming up or going westbound, only to have to make the U-turn to come back eastbound, and
Could have pulled in right here. Now you're gonna go westbound another mile or so. You're gonna come back around up another mile or so. There's 2 minutes.
And emergency vehicles, you can't stop a light rail train.
no,
So they-
have the right of way.
Right. So that
So
would
if the train
influence
is in fact
it as well.
rolling, yeah, that just adds
So you could double the time for a
Sure.
response.
potentially.
Not only the fact that you've eliminated all the turns that they could have made, right or left-hand turns, they have to follow along the tracks and can only make that turn where there's a break in the track.
You called an ambulance and you're sitting there and you watch it go by.
Yeah,
That's-
waiting for it to make the U-turn to come back and save your life. That's scary.
That shouldn't be.
And you were also explaining a little bit about the businesses being affected especially along the middle of the line. Do you want to talk any more about that, where there are no stops?
Well, sure, I mean, businesses are gonna flourish where there's pedestrians and where there's people, and those only places are there at the stations. Everything in between, if somebody's riding a light rail and wants to stop and go shopping over there, well, they can't stop. They have to wait for the next stop of the light rail and then walk back, and there's nothing in between. You have now eliminated all your vehicles, and any pedestrians, they're gonna have to walk in between to get to these places. There's long stretches.
Unless you're at a stop, there is no advantage to the light rail. And I hesitate to say that advantage and light rail in the same sentence. If you're in between, no, people aren't going to walk to you. Who's going to walk to anywhere in 115-degree temperatures when you don't have to? It's-
Well, thank you very much.
Absolutely.